It's a Tuesday at 3 p.m. You know what that means. Time for another DraftKings best ball draft here in the DFS world of Stochastic. There's $15 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place on DraftKings. I'm trying to chase it down here every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. on the Stochastic channel. And of course, I'm already in a draft room here, picking in the very non-influential 9 spot, but we'll make it work as best we can. We'll have a shot at some Puka Nacua types, some Malik Neighbors types perhaps. We'll see what we get on the way back here. Al Smizzle in the room. We got some VIPs. Of course, my guest today, Al Smizzle. No, it's just me. It's just me here. But Al Smizzle, we'll see what he does here. Of course, one of the DFS legends in the space. Guy that, frankly, one of the people that got me into DFS way back when. The show with him and Adam Levitan and Peter Jennings, the DFS Edge back in the day. I feel like that was a lot of people's entry point to the space. And now you have a lot of great content. The Stochastic shows, of course, being front among them. But got to see Al in this draft. He's been on my show Splash Play before, too. Though Pete booked him, so I don't know. I don't know if I can get him. Shout out to the chat, though. Appreciate our guy, Steven Leibovitz, being here. Glad to see him. I should also retweet on Twitter. Of course, here on the Stochastic Best Ball streams, one thing I always try to do here, because Best Ball, unlike DFS, not quite as figured out, not quite as projectable, not quite as easy to use a sim to have a shot at winning the big money like you see people on the Stochastic channel doing on the regular for NFL, for NBA, for MLB. And DFS, though, you have those easy things you could do, or relatively easy, let's say, tools you could use that'll help it make it easier for you to get good lineups in. And Best Ball, it all comes down to you and following, in my opinion, and a lot of people who are sharp with the data out there, these 3 rules of thumb, number 1 of which is being mindful of ADP. You see a guy like Jamar Chase going at the 101 spot. You normally don't want to reach for a guy. I know people love Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt right now, the buzziest player in the world, even though he's probably an RB3 for Washington. Either way, people taking him at the 101. You could think he's the best player in football. You still shouldn't do that. You should follow ADP. ADP is like your median projection combined with an ownership projection, telling you how much these guys get drafted as well in the, particular in the top 15 rounds. If a guy's getting taken those top 15 rounds, that means 8% of teams and change have them in a tournament. So it's one thing to keep in mind here. But ADP is a really important part of it. We'll talk about the other 2 rules of thumb here before I make a pick. Malik Neighbors expected back in practice today, I believe, with Cam Scadaboo as well. So if you are worried about him with a back injury he's had in addition to some toe stuff, it is safe to take Malik Neighbors. And I think I'll do that here. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown, a guy I'd be happy to get as well. Exposure-wise, I'm a little bit lower on Amon-Ra than I am Malik Neighbors. But in terms of explosive upside, in terms of the potential to be a wide receiver 1, to be a true outlier talent, at this point, we know what Amon-Ra St. Brown is. Malik Neighbors, there's more upside there still, so happy to do that. But our second rule of thumb, stacking and correlation. Obviously, you guys know this is the DFS channel. If you're playing NFL DFS, you know that you want to generally stack up your QB with at least 1 receiver, sometimes 2, a tight end, a running back's possible as well. But here in best ball, you're willing to do more of that, more receivers, more tight ends, more running backs. You're trying to capture the tide of an entire season and get those games too that can ping pong back and forth. When Jamar Chase has a big game, sometimes the next time out, T. Higgins is a big one. So it gives you a lot of upside for the fantasy playoffs. So stacking and correlating, a really important part of things overall. And we got a pick coming up here. That timed out well. Drake London goes. Devon Achane right now has a soft tissue injury, an ambiguous one in his lower body. Supposedly not going to be a long time out, but that's why he's falling in rooms right now. Look, I'll go with the 2 rookie outliers, Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. I would love to get a hero RB. Definitely balanced builds on DraftKings can be particularly valuable, especially, in my opinion, at the end of a round. But that said, getting Brian Thomas at pick 16 feels like something that doesn't happen a ton. So we'll go for the somewhat uniqueness of that one. The third rule of thumb here, of course, he has 3 thumb rule. That sounds dirty now that I've said that out loud. Third rule of thumb, though, your expected values realized in week 17. This is a really important one to keep in mind. People sometimes get bogged down by advance rate stuff. And if you build teams that are more running back heavy, a lot of times you will advance more teams throughout those first 14 weeks. Your team will be a little bit less potent if you reach for players a lot too. Same thing when you get to the real money weeks, week 15, week 16, and in particular week 17. If you advance into the playoffs pretty much across no matter what site you're playing on, you're getting your entry fee back, maybe a little bit more than that. If you get to week 17, if you finish in one of those top 10 spots amidst the 1,000 or so entries in week 17 on DraftKings, everybody wins at least $100,000. Top finisher wins $2 million. Second place wins $1 million. So you're talking about the biggest prize you could win in the worlds of DFS, gambling, best ball, whatever you want to say. So that's what you're playing for. You're playing for week 17, building teams that could spike later on. That could mean things like weighting some rookies a little bit more. The people maybe do that a little bit too much this year, but your DJ Giddens of the world, your Bashal Tutins, guys that can maybe round into an RB1 when the season does come to its conclusion. Those guys you can maybe value a little bit more. But it's also about having enough wide receiver firepower power, having teams that, again, correlate, that are stacked up, that also have week 17 opponents. If you have a QB stacked up with your wide receiver, tight end, whatever, you have a bring back from your week 17 opponent, whatever team they're playing in that game. Because if you capture an outlier game environment where the teams combine for 60 points, even 50 plus points, but a more, consolidated offense, you might have the actual nuts then by just kind of targeting an individual game. So that's the three rules of thumb to keep in mind when you are drafting, whether it be DraftKings, Underdog, Drafters, a site I partner with on my Splash Play pod channel. It's all the same principle for best ball. And obviously with some intricacies in between, because sites like DraftKings, Underdog, you have a little bit of playoff luck that comes to the equation, which, your lips to God's ears with how playoff pod luck and things like that work. Shout out to all you guys hanging out. If you are watching live or after the fact, please do hit that like button. Please subscribe here on the Stochastic YouTube channel. Of course, great DFS content coming on the regular NFL season coming out. I know there's some planning going on behind the scenes for that. That'll hopefully be a part of some fun stuff on here. But please hit that like button. Please subscribe. And if you're on Twitter, hit the like button on there too, because the content goes out there as well. Big news, though, of the day, which I talked about at length on my Splash Play channel before this one. So if you heard me talk about it before, fuck me. But still going to talk about it now. Daniel Jones starting over Anthony Richardson. Some organizational malpractice, perhaps, for the Colts, giving up on their QB who's younger than a lot of starters in the NFL right now. Anthony Richardson, a guy who they knew was a development project. Now they're giving up. This guy doing 2 tight ends. That's aggressive. A lot of ADP tied up at tight end. We need an RB. Omarion Hampton go a little bit after ADP here at pick 33. Travion Henderson coming up a bunch here too. Jeez. The rookies making a big surge. And for Hampton, the real case there is I think he's probably as projectable as Ashton Genty in some ways. He is your lead back for the Chargers. With Najee Harris having an eye injury throughout basically the entire summer, he never really got into camp in a meaningful way. I don't even know if he's still actually practicing in 11 on 11s. So Marion Hampton's pretty well entrenched as the RB1 at this point. He's also the guy that's got the draft capital. So for Hampton, I think he's pretty safe as a rookie RB. For Henderson, I get what we're seeing in the preseason. He looks crazy explosive. Looks like a really good PPR back. I have favored him on DraftKings as opposed to the half PPR best ball sites this year because I think there's going to be upside for him to be, a James White type in that historical Josh McDaniels offense, a Dion Lewis type, another guy that smaller back's gotten some usage, but not bell cow work. I think Hampton's potentially a bell cow, a guy who graded out to me really well actually as a pass catcher at UNC. Also a guy who can handle 30 touches a game like he did in college. He's set up well for that for the Chargers. Whereas for Henderson, again, really big upside for sure, but I don't think he's in that Genty Hampton tier we're expecting, or at least I think most projection systems will project 15, 20 touches, most spots, dominant goal line role. I think you're squinting your eyes a little bit more for Henderson. So see what we take on this next pick, given that Henderson's rolling right back to me, but it's a tough click. And I like Henderson here. I don't know that he's a better click than Breece Hall. I would also favor James Cook over him, but James Cook went. Look, my boy Jaden Daniels is here. I'm trying to get to 2x the field on him. Gets a 16% or so ownership across my portfolio on DraftKings. His field's going to have about 8% change because he's getting drafted every time out. So let's go Jaden Daniels here. So no stacking yet. Terry McLaurin went early as well, so we won't get him back. Not that we would anyway. We got Jaden Daniels, Omarion Hampton, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., very young team. Obviously, the second-year guys, we feel good about projecting Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas. Though Brian Thomas, I think some of the numbers he put up last year could definitely be a reflection of the fact that that team was totally depleted down the home stretch last year. Had nobody else. Christian Kirk banged up, Evan Ingram banged up. There's really no other credible threats on the team when Mac Jones just kind of fed Brian Thomas so aggressively. But that said, Brian Thomas believed in the upside. I'm there for it. Hampton, again, we're projecting as a bell cow back this year. Jaden Daniels looked good for that one drive Washington gave him running for a touchdown where he probably could have slid, but he wanted to get it in. Daniels, I think, has the upside to beat out Lamar and Josh Allen. And frankly, the RB room turned into dog shit for the Commanders. Probably a good thing for Jaden Daniels absorbing some more touchdown equity. Last year, Brian Robinson for the Commanders had 3 red zone rushes a game, a little bit over that. That's gone now. And yeah, some of it's going to go to Eckler. Some of it will go to the beloved Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Some of it will probably go to Chris Rodriguez the most as that new power back coming in potentially to take away some of that Robinson work, but be able to do a little bit more on the field and have some more explosiveness. I think still the big winner, though, is Jaden Daniels, because all those guys, frankly, going to be a nightmare to project week to week, I think, for DFS. Because it is seeming like it's going to be a true running back by committee based upon some of the reporters out there. Ben Standig, the one who first broke that, it seemed like the team could move on before week 1 from Brian Robinson, because in part because of the faith they have in Krosky Merritt, but not entirely because of that. He said at length, had a Substack post. And again, this guy was a former athletic reporter, I think moved on this year. I don't know if he got laid off or what, but getting a big reporting win like this, all kudos to Ben Standig. If you want to follow him out on Twitter and check him out for the work he's doing, you're reporting on the Commander stuff. Point being is that in the video he put out last night after the game, he said he anticipated it being a running back by committee and thinks McNichols might be involved. They also like some of their down the depth chart guys enough, like Kaz Allen, like Demetric Felton. Some also ran names you might know in particular with Felton, former Browns guy. Point being is like they're just going to throw shit against the wall and something might stick. But I don't know that it's guaranteed to be Krosky Merritt in the way that people think he's going to be immediately a bell cow back. He's going top 100 in some rooms on DraftKings, Underdog, other sites out there as well. I think that's really one of those things where because you're a DFS player, assumingly you're watching here on Stochastic, a lot of you guys are, thinking about things through that projection mindset a little bit more, I think is a really important part of best ball that many people are missing this year. And that's the difference between an Omarion Hampton, being at one tier, in my opinion, a Henderson being at a tier slightly below that, a Jacory Krosky Merritt being significantly below that. I would put him behind RJ Harvey even in terms of what the expectation of a projection week to week would be. So, your mileage may vary. I haven't, I've taken some Krosky Merritt in particular on DraftKings where you have the 20 rounds. Got to, I think, a little bit over, I forget my exact number on it. I think I've gotten a 4% Krosky Merritt when he wasn't being drafted. Let's see. Yeah, 4.5% Krosky Merritt heading into yesterday when I updated my data. So I've gotten some Krosky Merritt. Like I'm not out on him or anything, but I do think there's a difference between buying him for free versus buying him on a massive rise up ahead of guys who are, if Joe Mixon's healthy week 1, a legitimate bell cow back, ahead of guys who we know have upside roles in the offense that might be high value touches like Cam Scadaboo. Like that range, in Scadaboo's range, I get it. But like, I think there's a little bit too much enthusiasm for certain guys in certain situations. And the Krosky Merritt one might be one of the most pronounced ones we've had in a while. We got Devontae Smith coming back, Rashee Rice coming back, another fairly projectable rookie in RJ Harvey coming back. I think it's still Devontae Smith for me here. Big surge for Mika Egbuka, who now seems guaranteed the wide receiver 2 role for Tampa Bay because you do have a banged up Chris Godwin, who seems to be trending towards going on the PUP list, which likely means he'd be out in the first 4 weeks of the season, at least, maybe possibly more. We'll see how his recovery goes, given that he hasn't apparently even been jogging on the sidelines at all, has Chris Godwin. But Egbuka's coming up pretty heavy. I would still favor the projectable guys here, like Zay Flower. Again, same theme here. I hate to beat the drum. It's just like, it's one of the things that's kind of driven me nuts this year in best ball as somebody that's now played, maxed out best ball slates for 3 years in a row, played a partial slate year 1, got smoked when I was doing streams with my pal Pete Overzet. There's a lot in best ball that I think people miss the forest from the trees on, and just keeping that concept of projection in mind as you draft teams, I think is a big part of it. Deebo Samuel comes back, so definitely going a little wide receiver heavy to start with Omarion Hampton. Rashee Rice at this range, draftable to me, but we have the Jaden Daniels bet. Deebo Samuel looking slim, looking fast for all the people that were calling him Fat Deebo earlier in the offseason. He's got 8% body fat, and he broke a big run yesterday. And frankly, if there's a world where Terry McLaurin gets traded, Deebo Samuel probably 40 spots undervalued in ADP right now, going in the late 60s. So my team so far, Jaden Daniels, Omarion Hampton, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., Devontae Smith, Deebo Samuel. The one critique I would give myself is that Hampton, even though he is projectable relative to how we're talking about some of these rookies, he is still a rookie. There could be a little bit of a lull for him to get going in the start of the year. So we might want to add some more vet projectable points coming up in the next few rounds. But we should be able to do that, I'm hoping, with a few guys. So we'll see. Drafted Tet, Genty, and Omarion Hampton in my cook. No, because those are all guys that have real roles. Again, that's like, it's still tough because you're taking guys like Tet in a range where there's a lot of really solid receivers. Like here in this room, Tet went right next to Mike Evans, Marvin Harrison, who's in year 2, should be making the jump from year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3. The guys make the most skill positions in the NFL. Terry McLaurin, if he comes back to Washington, like I would assume, or he gets traded to a team like New England, that's apparently in the hunt for making one more big trade, perhaps. Defense could be Micah Parsons, could be Trey Hendrickson, but it could be Terry McLaurin taking over that outside receiver role. These guys are all really high upside players as well, who we know we have a track record for For Tet, I think he's great. I think he's a good after catch guy based on the college numbers. He was efficient based upon the EPA data from a sports info solutions company I used to get all that stuff. That got access during my Football Outsiders days, and it's been one of the most important parts of me. I'm trying to understand football on a higher level, as I hopefully have in the last few years. But for Tet, it's like his ceiling outcome might be Marvin Harrison in year 2. So that's the tough part about the rookies. Obviously, for spike week stuff, you expect guys like Hampton, Genty, Tet McMillan to kind of hit that apex when, week 17 comes up. For a guy like Egbuka, he should be at his best come week 17, but Chris Godwin's got to be back by that point. I think that hurts the role. McMillan would also be back by that point. With his neck injury that's going to apparently keep him out the first half of the season now. A really bad strained neck for Jalen McMillan, not Tet McMillan. But that's, changes the Bucs situation a little bit. Egbuka's a weird play because, I think he's probably better for that first 4 weeks, assuming Godwin's on the PUP list, than most rookies will be. But he's probably worse for week 17 than most rookies would be because the role shouldn't. I don't think he's Wally Pipping Chris Godwin in his $20 million a year. Seems unlikely to me. Appreciate all you guys watching live, though. Appreciate guys like Steven. Not me as a Pats guy, but I think Henderson could be more than just a third down back. I think he can be more, but we've seen now in 2 preseason games, Ramondre going ahead of him, taking the kind of dirty up the middle carries. Then you also, last game, Ramondre was hurt. Antonio Gibson running ahead of him. And Gibson, I would have thought was on the roster bubble as much as anything. Is probably more of the third down, pure backup back. The point being is when Ramondre went out, it wasn't like, oh, we just gave Henderson all the work. And, to give him some different looks in terms of the carries he's going to get. It was, let's use Gibson as our lead back and then have Henderson coming after. Henderson wasn't a bell cow at Ohio State. We're talking, I think he had 12 touches a game. I could actually pull that number up here in a different tab. Travion Henderson, 11 opportunities a game, 11.2 actually, 10.9 actual touches a game, 9 rushing attempts a game. Usually the best predictor of being a bell cow at the next level is being a bell cow in college. And even guys who don't have a lot of pedigree, like Chase Brown was a 30-touch back at Illinois. He didn't come in with a lot of hype for the pros. He ends up falling ass backwards into being a bell cow back in the NFL. It's sort of how that works. So I would naturally kind of critique or, question, Henderson's ability to be a bell cow. Travis Hunter almost came back, which would have been tempting to take him, get the Jacksonville double for way cheaper than it normally goes. But instead, we're going to get some actual projectable points here. Aaron Jones, your lead back from Minnesota. Some risk he's going to lose goal line work to Jordan Mason this year, which is fine. Aaron Jones had a good role last year in the red zone. Frankly, one of the better roles in football, if I'm remembering correctly. Aaron Jones, 2.5 red zone rushes a game last year, 1.1 red zone targets a game. I think Aaron Jones could afford to, actually, you could probably afford to keep that and maybe just give a little bit more on top of it to Jordan Mason that comes from some other part of the pie. But let's say he loses 1 red zone carry, maybe gains half a target in the red zone. You're looking at 2 and change per game in the red zone in terms of that touchdown opportunity. And in PPR as well for Aaron Jones, being that reception back, that third down back, especially for a guy like McCarthy, who's going to, I think, take the check down pretty willingly based upon what we've seen with him, so far from Minnesota, but also in particular at Michigan. I think Aaron Jones makes a lot of sense on PPR sites. I still take him on underdog, half-point PPR. But for full-point PPR, I think Aaron Jones at this range is a particularly nice click. Beverage Bimbo, fun name. I was in a stream, the stream I did before my try draft launch streams on my Splash Play pod channel. There was somebody whose username was Mike Hunt with a K. I know it's a sponsored, but it's these are the names we're coming up against. We got Beverage Bimbo. We got that with I don't know what's going on with the naming on the sites, but clean it up is what I'd say. Keep it PG like I like to. Tyrone Tracy here, a little bit after ADP. Jordan Mason get the other side of Minnesota, which would be kind of an interesting bet to make. I'm going to do that. I like Tyrone Tracy enough, but the concept of just getting both Minnesota backs, getting that production, I don't think it's going to be a situation where one is going to be meaningfully leading and the other one only benefits as a contingent play. I think it's entirely possible they ping pong games back and forth. So Jordan Mason going to be my RB3 right now in a 1-3-4-0 build so far. So Jaden Daniels, Omarion Hampton, Aaron Jones, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Devontae Smith. I feel like he's the one that stands out here. He doesn't kind of fit the vibe of all the other players. Not young, not really, not stacked up. But Devontae is just too cheap, I think, going where he is right now. Deebo Samuel, Jordan Mason. Happy with the team so far. And I am somebody on stream, which for the record, when I build a team I don't like, I'm happy to say I don't like the team. This team that I think is working pretty well. Let's see. Is this a no-brainer except someone offering Josh Allen, CD, and his last pick for Derrick Henry, Jalen Hurts, and Devontae Smith, aka he's an Eagles fan? Yeah, based on ADPs, you would do that one. Yeah. You're losing RB though, pretty meaningfully there. I don't know. That's actually, I think it's not an unfair trade, but I'm not a redraft player at this stage of things. But based on the value, I mean, Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb goes the highest out of all those guys. So you're getting the highest ADP player. He's getting a guy from you that's going at the 1-2 turn in Derrick Henry. Josh Allen goes a little bit ahead of Jalen Hurts, but whatever. And then you're giving up Devontae Smith, which is a lot higher pick than last pick. I don't think you have to do the deal, but it's an okay deal. Chris Godwin goes at 95 here. He's been falling a lot in rooms. Same thing for Joe Mixon going at 96 here. I'm still okay taking these guys in this range based on how I would value them. But Mixon and Godwin are going a lot cheaper in rooms. Mixon I've seen go in the 130s on Underdog. On DraftKings, I've seen Mixon in a room I've been in go in the 110s. Godwin and Mooney can sometimes go. I mean, Godwin goes a little bit earlier than Mooney, but Godwin can go in the 115 to 120 range based on rooms I've seen. And Mooney can go in the 130 plus range, which I've scooped up a couple times in streams, drafts I've done off stream. So right now, the injured guys that we don't have real certainty on, Mooney seems to be the closest, by the way. Raheem Morris talked earlier in the week about how Mooney's on schedule. He expects to see him out there soon. So maybe if not week 1, should be pretty soon after week 1 for Mooney. For Mixon and Godwin, we don't have any read in the timeline. Nothing about Mixon being on the pup list has been out there. Godwin, though, there has been active talk from the Pewter Report, a really good Bucks blog that did one of the sources I use really heavily to kind of keep backing up my priors on Bucky Irving last year, a guy that I loved from the beginning, then kind of got spooked on because, he was not a great athlete. Then, he started to get good camp reports like, okay, cool, I'm back in because I like this guy. You're getting good reporting from here. They even actually had a diary last year from Bucky Irving where he was putting little entries I'm sure he didn't write himself onto the blog. Point being is they report stuff pretty well. They think Chris Godwin's not going to be out there for the first 4 weeks, no matter what. He's not even running on the sideline at all. I might have mentioned that earlier in the video. So for Chris Godwin right now, like he should fall. I still think he's going to click because I think it's a certain point he comes back in and has a shot at being that top 5 caliber receiver he was last year. But as it is right now, don't take him early, I think is the main thing I would say. But we got a pick coming up here. Kyler Murray comes back. That really does nothing for me. Jaden Reed falling here. He's not one of my favorite players in the world either. This spot is pretty stinky. I'm going to go Charbonnet. Really think Charbonnet looks pretty good based on what we've seen so far from Seattle. The running back role for Seattle, whether it's Walker, as should be leading the way, or Charbonnet coming in for Walker when he has his inevitable injury. I think you want a share of that overall. And Charbonnet, to me, nice guy to round out the room, given the fact that started a little bit late for RB2, I think, based on how I've been drafting so far in 2025. All right, Jared Goff goes. Would like to get wide receiver 5 here, but, well, there's a couple options. Wouldn't shock me to see Michael Pittman come up a little bit. Oh, there goes Corey Krosky-Merritt. Get 50 spots, perhaps, before Austin Eckler will go. I functionally just don't believe that's correct, but the markets are disagreeing with me so far. Rashid Shaheed, who got some pretty nice design target work in the New Orleans game that we saw. Shaheed and Olave playing. Bateman, I also like a good amount here. But I'll go Shaheed. I think Shaheed and Olave, based on what we saw in that game, where I believe it was either 4 or 6 design targets between Olave and Shaheed for that stint that they were on the field. All of which, and design target would be basically one where it's like you're targeting within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, screen, flanker play, kind of things like that. Point being is like they had those pretty heavily because, that's what Kellen Moore is going to bring to the table as the guy who's running things now for New Orleans. I think it bodes well for Shaheed and Olave getting some easy PPR points and pick 112 here. Again, I think Bateman and Shaheed, very similar plays in terms of how I'd value them. But I think Shaheed feels like a nice wide receiver 5 for this team. So happy with my elite QB, Jaden Daniels. RB room started a little bit late. Omarion Hampton, maybe not the best hero RB guy to start with. It's given the fact he's a rookie. I think the team's coming along well. Just give the team a read here. We got Jaden Daniels, Amarian Hampton, Aaron Jones, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas is getting the star rookies from last year, and hopefully a year 2 leap. Devontae Smith, wide receiver 3, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 4. We got Jordan Mason, so both parts of the Minnesota backfield, because I think they're going to put up a lot of touchdowns cumulatively this year. Zach Charbonnet feels like more of a contingent back, but probably has a partial role with Walker this year. And Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver 5 right now. Generally, I've said it before, but it's my rule of thumb no matter what side I'm playing on. Trying to get to a Marvin Mims as my wide receiver 5 at the least. Christian Kirk is my wide receiver 5 at the least. Guys like Shaheed, Mooney at this range, Bateman, they would also qualify. Steven had a draft where you took Godwin, Mixon, put prayers up for later in the season. I've done that a bunch too. Look, I still think ultimately when you are playing for week 17, like we are on DraftKings, it's a pod format where you have 14 weeks, the teams advance from there. Then week 15, week 16, week 17, you're in smaller groups. I said that wrong. Week 15, week 16, you're in smaller groups. Week 17, you're in a 1,000 person groups. That's pretty big. But, it's the equivalent of a small field DFS tournament. The odds are that Godwin and Mixon are playing by then, especially, frankly, if they start the year slow, getting ramped up. They're probably rounding into shape a little bit later than you'd want because they haven't been out there practicing the entire offseason. So their upside in a pod format where you have that week 17 1,000-person pod, where you have the 12 to 16-person pods you're getting across every site in week 15 and week 16, like the fact that people didn't take Mixon because, because he was hurt in August. And he ultimately was previously valued when people thought he'd be healthy and able to go as a top 50 pick. Same thing for Chris Godwin. I think that matters to take those guys and hope they can get healthy. But the health in itself is the big risk. That's a big tax you have for it. Building teams that can absorb that injury risk is like a big part of the equation as well. So, your mileage may vary. We're getting to a spot where I think taking QB2 might make sense. Colston Loveland, not a bad ADP value at this point. I am going to take Loveland. Again, absorbing ADP value is still the best way to get unique. Obviously, you could do stuff like an RB normally goes on this side of the board. You take him over here. Same thing for a receiver, especially early on in a draft. People like to do that sometimes. But in my opinion, and I think the data backs it out as well, because your advance rates, things like that, do go up as you have more ADP value coming into your teams. I always think absorbing a player who's a decent faller is going to be the best move. Obviously, we're still hoping we get QB back. It's looking like tic-tac-toe over here with these guys frantically taking QB. Oh, my God. What is this entire room here? So McCarthy goes, all right, we got one of our potential QBs back. I had like 3 I could have taken there. I am going to go Trevor Lawrence here, who we have stacked up with Brian Thomas. But I was willing to take JJ McCarthy. He's been falling to the 140 range in DraftKings as I've seen lately. So I'm surprised to see him go early. Trevor Lawrence is a different buy than Jaden Daniels, right? Yeah, so we're okay there. But Trevor Lawrence here, stacked up with Brian Thomas, is our option. But that was a frenetic QB situation here. This side of the board, they've all got their one guy. The DraftKings players generally love getting 3 QBs because it's a 20-round draft, and sim data does support, generally getting more QBs than less. Even with an elite QB, a lot of times it'll tell you to tack on an Aaron Rodgers or something late if he's hanging around, a Bryce Young, depending on the ADP, things like that. I don't see how these guys are going to get 3 QBs. These guys are going to struggle even to get 2 QBs now. Be ready, though, on DraftKings. Rounds 9 through 11, strap in for QB freneticism. It's usually like the entire board looks like shark-infested waters. The Cam Ward going early here. The room's starting to panic a little bit. But of course, you too can panic on DraftKings, and really you should, because at this stage of the DraftKings tournament here, the Millie Maker is about 70% filled. Might be a little bit more than that at this point, but that's where the math was as of a couple hours ago. So on DraftKings right now, it's heading towards, I think, getting close to filling, maybe a shot at some reduced rake, but it is best ball week as well. And in particular today on DraftKings, when you draft 3 Millie Maker teams, which are $20 entries, you do get a free entry for the first week there, the Thursday Night Football Showdown for the first week Millie Maker as well. So it's a good deal going on. That's what they have in best ball week. In general, on DraftKings, when you're building teams right now, you get a $15 million prize pool. That's the big thing. $2 million to first place. But also, when you put in your first entry, you get your second one for free. So they've had good deals going on this entire offseason. Now in best ball week, you're going to find deals every single day. Check your app, check your email. I don't know if they email every day, but check the promos part of your app every day. It's a good time to draft best ball teams on DraftKings. And in particular, as we get down to the stretch where like they might be on the fence of, will this overlay? Will we get reduced rake? Probably going to throw some more in, getting you some entries in. So a lot of ways to get free entries right now for the upcoming NFL season. I got a couple Millie Maker for that $5 one they had. They've given some of those away with best ball week. There was also a free tournament you got to enter when you put in an entry yesterday. There's a lot of good stuff going on DraftKings with best ball. So check it out right now. Of course, download the app and you'll hear more legalese at the end of the video. That's my human sales pitch to you guys. Go play on DraftKings right now. Do you think, though, just, again, full disclosure, just to be candid with you guys, because you're on Stochastic, you should be mostly sharp people based on what I know of the audience here. It doesn't look like there's going to be as much overlay as there has been in previous years on DraftKings, where you would have a ton of wildcard entries coming in because the tournament got to 75, 80% filled. This year, it does seem like they're going to get a lot closer to where it's supposed to be. So just something to keep in mind for you guys out there that are chasing the truest EV, which is taking all the promos, being in the tournaments that have overlay / reduced rake, gambling. Austin Eckler goes at 149. He should be going higher. Quinshon Judkins doesn't even have a contract now, so he might be on the commissioner's exempt list. The team also might not want to sign him until the NFL clears him or not. So he's in no man's land. He also got drafted in the range where contractually he wants guaranteed money, and every other player who got drafted near him, before him, and after him in the second round got guaranteed money. I think people are taking Judkins like he is a sure thing, and they are instead passing up Eckler, who is free now and actually has a very real role for a team as a guy that soaked up a lot of high-value touches last year, including in the playoffs when they mattered the most, and the team lost faith in Brian Robinson. 2-4-5-1 build here. I do like Trey Benson. A lot of reports in the offseason about Benson getting a split workload with James Conner. Conner's still going to be your lead back. If I had to guess, it ends up being more like a 66-33 share at best for Benson. There's upside there. There's contingent value there. I think Benson is a guy that I want to get more shares of after he showed pretty well to me based on the analytics that I use. Benson last year, not Trinity Benson, 0.01 EPA per rush, 0.5 EPA per pass, a 21% avoided tackle rate. So he's got some legit juice there. Benson, I think, is a guy that if Conner goes down, people will regret not taking more of Trey Benson. All right, 2-5-5-1 here. Brenton Strange comes back. Jacksonville stack. Easy game. Very balanced build we've got with the 2-5-5-2. Jaden Daniels, Omarion Hampton, Aaron Jones, Malik Neighbors. Again, started RB a little bit later for RB2, and Hampton doesn't feel like the most secure RB1 for where we took him. But, again, if you get over the fact that he's a rookie, he is stepping into an RB1 role for a team that we know would love to run if the game allows it. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Devontae Smith, Colston Loveland was a nice ADP value. Deebo Samuel, Jordan Mason got the Minnesota backfield that I think puts up between them 10 to 15 touchdowns this year. I would hope more like 15. Zach Charbonnet, another RB. Rashid Shaheed's my wide receiver 5. Trevor Lawrence is my QB2. Trey Benz is my RB5. And Brenton Strange, tight end 2. Solid team. I think this team actually came together really well. Sometimes, I get some ADP values, and it throws me off the beaten path. I end up not getting guys where I want to get them in terms of just fleshing out a QB room or a receiver room or whatever. This room, I got most of the stuff I wanted. A lot of youth, maybe too much youth, honestly. I feel good about it. So I think I just kind of answered this question. What do you do about Judkins? I personally have not taken him since the initial domestic violence thing. You don't fuck around with domestic violence stuff. In general, I'll give that as advice to all the young men out there. But also, especially for especially for you. Actually, I said it the wrong way. You shouldn't really do any domestic violence stuff. But also for NFL players, it matters a lot as well. Because the suspension can come without any legal stuff going behind it. We've seen it happen in the past where Goodell suspends somebody because there's enough evidence that something occurred. And even if the legal system doesn't, he wants to strike down the guy and show hey, you don't even get close to it. So for how that looks for Judkins, I don't like that situation. The second part of it is now you've had an entire camp where Samson's earned whatever role. Jerome Ford has clearly earned some role back after he clearly wanted to be with the team or took a reduced contract. He got sat in the preseason game last time out alongside Samson. That's clearly a 1-2 in the pecking order there. Pierre Strong's not total dog shit. I think Judkins gets to the mix later on, but I think it's hard for me to see him having like massive upside. That said, like he's priced now totally fair where I said he should go next to Scadaboo is how I kind of filed it away in my rankings, which you can get if you join my OddsShopper Tails package, if you want to do that. That was where I moved him to. So I feel like for Judkins, I think he's priced fairly now, but I don't need him as part of my portfolio more than I already have. I just don't see the big upside there. And he's another guy too, where Travion Henderson was taking away half the work. Like he wasn't a true bell cow. He spiked in the CFP in a way that people will remember, but he wasn't a true bell cow, and he probably can't pass protect. And he missed practice time where he could have coached himself up with that. And we're seeing that be an issue for guys, kind of similar backs to him, like Caleb Johnson in Pittsburgh. So I'm not a Judkins guy. If the player gets cut or doesn't make the team, no, nothing. Oh, nothing happens. He's on your team. If you draft a player and they never play again, they retire tomorrow, they're on your team. I took Derek Carr on some pre-NFL draft teams, like not a ton. But I was like, like they're paying him so much money. Seems like the inertia was there for him to have to come back, and he retires, and that team is just down a roster spot. So same thing as if they tear an ACL, same thing as if they miss time, they're just on your team. But I guess a fair question if you never played best ball. But that's why it's called best ball. It's like you make your best. It's like golf. You make your best shot. It's close to the tee. Great. If not, you got as close as you can get. I think I explained best ball pretty well there. Yep. Did you say you? There you go. All right. We got a 2-5-5-2. Johnny Smith goes. Jalen McMillan, who again going to be out half the season, he finally goes. I mean, honestly, not even finally. That was barely after ADP. I'd probably let McMillan fall a little bit more, even in a pod-based format where we do want the potential for upside. McMillan might bring for the playoffs. You'd hope. I think a 6th receiver would be nice here. We got the bet on the Giants. Let's go Wan'Dale Robinson as well. There's some world where Neighbors doesn't spike a certain week and Wan'Dale Robinson does the result. I like the Giants pass game a good amount this year. I think Russell Wilson is going to be an aggressive downfield thrower. We saw that. You probably saw on Twitter people going moon balls. It's like the only thing people like to cling to for Russell Wilson. Not a guy that likes to attack the middle of the field. Maybe that's not great for Wan'Dale. But I think you're going to see some deep shots. I think the offense will run a little bit better as a result. Wan'Dale pick 180, I think, on a PPR side especially. There's upside there. If Neighbors ever goes down, there's even bigger upside for Wan'Dale. Well, you're getting Wan'Dale, Slayton, Theo Johnson late. I think those are pretty good clicks. All right. Want to get the 6th RB. Nobody here on the board right now is somebody I feel strongly about taking. You know what? That said, this is early, but I think this is where the guy's going to come up to. Chris Rodriguez impressed me enough in that game. At this stage of things at RB, we're not really passing up anything too crazy. Jalen Wright's going the wrong way 100%. Woody Marks is playing behind Darian Gubawale. I don't know what the role is for him, and I've hated him coming out of USC. He was one of our least special running backs as a USC alum, and now people are talking about him like he's something special, and he's not. And everybody else here, Kareem Hunt, Roshan's going the wrong way. I could live with him. But I'll take Rodriguez, a guy who hasn't gotten drafted very much, even on a 20-round draft on DraftKings. So a 2-6-6-2 build. And Rodriguez, crazy how the world works. There's not a world this year where I thought I'd be drafting Chris Rodriguez. I was pretty cozy with the world of they're going to give Brian Robinson that same role he had last year. Maybe Eckler carves out a little bit more in certain high leverage spots based on how the playoffs went and the end of last season went. But Robinson got hurt last year, and they just fell out of favor with him entirely. Reports were that, so at least some of the Twitter rumors, and I think kind of vaguely talked about by the reporters, but apparently since the Detroit game for Washington, they felt like Robinson wasn't trying to get aggressively enough upfield, and that kind of soured them on it. This is me just speculating, but based on how the NFL works, if I had to guess, Brian Robinson wanted new money as well because of the fact that guys like Kyron Williams got new money, James Cook in his draft class got new money. So Brian Robinson's at that's period now where it's kind of like shit or get off the pot for him. And I think if I had to guess, his reps went to the Commanders were like, we want $8 million a year. And they were like, we actually were thinking more about like cutting you. And that's sad. It bums me out for Brian Robinson. I don't know where he's going to go. I said it on my last stream, my Splash Play stream. You guys should check out too. I do draft on every platform on there. I think Pittsburgh would be the most logical bet if they're not all the way there on Caleb Johnson. They're so all in this year as well. I don't know. I think that there's still good outcomes for Brian Robinson potentially, but a running back like him is just not special enough anymore. Like, because he's not great at anything. I don't think he's as bad as people think he is. Like, he still was efficient enough compared to other running backs. Some guys he beats out in certain metrics. Like, he beats out Breece Hall in some metrics, beats out Isaiah Pacheco and avoided tackle metrics by like double the amount last year. Like, Brian Robinson's not total dog shit. But it's like, I don't know who wants him. People say this a lot too. Dallas could be a landing spot theoretically, but Javonte Williams does the same thing as him. He's similarly inefficient. And he's also at least trusted as a pass blocker, whereas Robinson, even though Robinson wasn't bad in the pass game last year, he had like I think a 18% target per out run. It's 17.6% target per out run, negative 0.07 EPA per target. For a running back, that's nothing that bad. And he also had a 35% avoided tackle rate, higher than Austin Eckler when he did have a catch. So like he did some stuff with the ball in his hands, getting a target. But if they don't view him like a pass catcher, then he's not really an improvement over Javonte. So I don't know what the fit is for him. People think the Houston one with Joe Mixon would be the most logical one, but I don't think that Houston's going to throw in the towel on Mixon yet. It seems like he's closer to playing week 1 than playing on the PUP list based on what I've been reading from the beat reporters and some of the guys have been talking about. That said, I guess that could change, and certainly he could end up the Chris Godwin route. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. Miami, another one people have linked. I'm not sure about that because Ollie Gordon's also a very similar player to Brian Robinson. And if you have the younger version, you should keep the younger version as opposed to the one that you're going to have to theoretically pay soon. So I don't know who gets Brian Robinson, but I think Pittsburgh would be the one where it's like, all right, he's like Caleb Johnson, but he's ready. He's played in a title game, an NFC title game. We're on the clock again, though. 2662. I think we need a little more at tight end. I mean, frankly, maybe 2 more picks at tight end. Jatavian Sanders, another guy I've been taking a good amount. A lot of people have in these rounds. Getting him around 17, around 18, the appropriate price for him. If you get him around 19, scoop him up. But Jatavian, not flashing in the preseason in a major way. If he had like a Jalen Coker kind of game, Jatavian Sanders would probably go in the 15th round right now. But because Chigakonko's had a good preseason showing, had good camp reports, people are surging on him. But I think fundamentally, Chig, Jatavian Sanders, Theo Johnson, all guys who are kind of similar clicks. Getting weird here in these last few rounds. Chris Rodriguez, Jatavian Sanders is not that weird, but Diami Brown is a guy I take a lot as a bailout receiver, and I'm just going to do that again here because we actually have the stack with Trevor Lawrence. So he's one of my highest exposed guys on DraftKings. I just don't think Diami Brown should be free based upon the fact that, number one, he's the first signing this Jacksonville regime brought in, and they're paying him about 10 mil, a little bit less than that. Number two, he's been targeted a lot in the preseason training camp portion of things. Hasn't shown it in the big and a game enough for people, but neither has anybody else in the starting Jaguars units. Like, it's just been kind of rotational stuff we've taken away. So Diami Brown, there's been no negative FUD. I guess Parker Washington playing well enough. Maybe people perceive it as that being a bad thing for Diami Brown. But Diami Brown's getting paid, so I think he'll be fine. He never moves up in ADP on DraftKings. I'm taking him here. So my team right now is a 2-6-7-3. I think live for one of anything at this point, but probably not QB. Jaden Daniels, Omarion Hampton, Aaron Jones, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Devontae Smith. The receiver room is pretty strong, I think. Starting with 2 in a row, I would hope so. Colston Loveland, got him as a nice ADP faller. Deebo Samuel, like him as our wide receiver 4. Jordan Mason, part of our Minnesota, cornering the backfield there. Zach Charbonnet, Rashid Shaheed, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Benson, Brenton Strange, Wan'Dale Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, part of that Washington bet. Jatavian Sanders, Diami Brown. If I were to take week 17 correlation, it'd be Dallas guys. So maybe a Kevontae Turpin type, I guess. Don't take him very often, though, because I don't know there's a ton of opportunity for him overall. For Jacksonville, it'd be an Indianapolis guy, maybe. Let's see what we get back. Shout out to all you guys hanging out, though. If you are watching live on Stochastic, whether it be on YouTube or on Twitter, please hit that like button. On Twitter, that'd be in the form of that little heart. On YouTube, it'd be the form of the little thumb. But put that thumb where it needs to go. As we always say when asking for likes, put that thumb where it needs to go. Hit the like button if you can. And also make sure to subscribe here. Check out Stochastic, of course, later today. We got MLB Live Before Lock coming up. I should always pull up the sheet in advance and know who's coming up today, but I presume it's Greg and Eric. Staffing view. Here we go. Tuesday, right? Oh, it's a Tuesday. Live Before Lock, 6:15 Eastern today with Greg and Eric. So tune into that later today. Two of the greats in the space. Two guys I'd call friends. Sure, they're not getting on YouTube NFL broadcasts like my friend Pete Overzet. All my friends doing so well. And here I am doing best ball drafts at 3 p.m. We're all doing well in our own ways. But check out that MLB show. Greg and Eric, two of my faves, and they should be yours as well. And if they're not, I'll get you. Actually, here we go. This is an appropriate time. If they're not, I'll come to your house. I'll show you where that thumb goes. Anyway, there's Puppet Linquist. Everybody that wants Puppet Linquist, I don't feel comfortable doing it unless Eric's around. But I think we may have some NFL crossovers. So you might get some NFL Puppet Linquist. The one sport I have true credibility on in a serious way with all my knowledge accumulated, I'll do some puppeteering. Do some puppeteering with Eric. And play on DraftKings, of course. You guys will hear the official legalese ad read come in a moment, but you guys know the deal at this point. Put in your first entry on DraftKings, get one for free. And also the big thing going on today, on Tuesday, if you're drafting today during Best Ball Week, if you put in 3 entries in the Best Ball Millie Maker today, you get yourself a free $15 ticket for Week 1 or for the NFL Showdown on Thursday Night Football. So cool stuff going on with Best Ball Week. Check it out and get some entries in. I think even if you're putting in just the 1-for-1, 1-in-1, get your free one with it. It's worth a shot. $2 million. You don't get that in the prize pool too often. And, that's FU money. DraftKings gives you FU money if things really work out well. IV maxing dong of the day now. Good. My footprint is large, pronounced. People can take my bits. I can't do MLB every day. Adonai Mitchell goes. That kind of bums me out. I wanted to get some 80 Mitchell for my Jacksonville stuff. Because they are playing in Week 17. Got to know your Week 17 matchups. If you don't have them memorized at this point, then you are a healthier, more mentally stable person than I am. But if you're gambling on best ball, it's important to know your Week 17 matchups. Come on. Clock says 0. What is this? All right. Good. Not giving anything away here. But if we were to want to take a Jacksonville bring back from Indianapolis, there's perhaps one that could be interesting at RB. Take one more big swing for a contingent value play. Clock is just off today. Why? The clock's starting at 22 seconds. Then it gets to 0 and it just kind of hangs around for a little. All right, I'm going to go DJ Giddens here. Not actually a DJ, but he is a running back here. He's been RB2 for the Colts, and people caught up to it in the preseason, like when the game's actually been played. But he's been the lead backup for Jonathan Taylor the entire offseason. I do think he's mostly just a backup. Like, I don't think he actually has a role for himself that matters unless Jonathan Taylor goes down. But he's been safely ahead of Khalil Herbert since the moment camp opened. So DJ Giddens, one of those guys I didn't take a lot of previously. Want to get some more of down the home stretch, in particular because I'm kind of out of the Marshawn Lloyd business at this point with him getting hurt again. Giddens is one of the guys late in a draft I'm taking some more of. So if you wish to do the same, you may. Would have taken Theo Johnson as a tight end 4. So I think this room could be okay with the tight end 4. I'm going to go Turpin. Never take Turpin. He is your wide receiver 3 for Dallas. Certainly a team that I expect wants to run the ball more than people realize, especially given how high they're taking CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. And for Turpin, he is a guy that out of the slot can offer you some flexibility. There is some, theoretical special teams touchdown equity as well. So he'll be our week 17 correlation for Washington. So Jaden Daniels, our elite QB. That's why we only took 2 today. O'Marion Hampton, Aaron Jones, and also just the third one never aligned in a way that made sense. Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, 2 wide receivers start. The young guys here. Devontae Smith got him a little bit after ADP. Colson Loveland a lot after ADP. Deebo Samuel's my wide receiver 4. Jordan Mason is part of my dual Minnesota backfield, which I think works better than a lot of teams because Mason and Jones should score touchdowns in different ways. Charbonnet, Rashid Shaheed rounding out rooms there. Trevor Lawrence, QB2, part of a big Jacksonville stack with pretty much everything besides Travis Hunter. Trey Benson, Brenton Strange, Wan'Dale Robinson, another bet on the Giants without taking the QB. Chris Rodriguez, Jatavian Sanders, Diami Brown, DJ Giddens, Kevontae Turpin. I don't know if I'd say this team slaps. It lightly tickles. Tolbert was playing with like the scrubs last time out in the preseason. The reports have also been he's been playing ahead of him. I don't think it's like a for sure thing, but I think there's more upside for Turpin than Tolbert at this point. Oh, Marshawn Lloyd gets drafted. That's good. What did Al Smizzle do? Gotta love Al. Been good to me when he was on my Splash Play show before. Follows me on Twitter. All things that I would say is a quality human being. Jalen Hurts, Isaiah Pacheco as RB1. Yikes. So he's going 0 RB. Travis Etienne, CeeDee Lamb, Lad McConkey, T. Higgins, loaded receiver room. Sam Laporta, Devontae Adams is wide receiver 4. I mean, absolutely loaded at receiver. Dak Prescott, Darnell Mooney, Dallas Goedert, Jake Ferguson. So stacking and correlating pretty well throughout the team as well. This is Dallas and Philadelphia stacks. And this is Al Smizzle's team, not mine. Then at RB, Ramondre, Rashad White, Tyler Algier. So he's going projectable guys. This is a real 0 RB team. Woody Marks. I think he needed more than 6 RBs there. But hey, if Pacheco hits, there you go. Look, Al's a sharp guy. I like Al. So you got to see my guest Al Smizzle today here on Stokastic. But shout out to all you guys hanging out here. I think you've seen enough. We don't need to see the last 2 picks. Appreciate all you guys watching here. Please make sure to hit that like button. Please subscribe. Of course, go play on DraftKings. You guys know the deal. Put in your first entry. Get one for free. Take part in Best Ball Week as well, where there are different promos going every single day. But I know what you really want to hear, and that's the sound of Greg Ehrenberg telling you all the legalese. So let's let him do that right now.
It's best ball season, and DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another best ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second chance to win big. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply and void where prohibited. 1 per customer. Enter the Best Ball $15 million headliner contest by September 4th, 2025 to get 1 bonus entry. $20 entry fee required. Reward expires in 30 days. See terms at DraftKings.com/NFL-best-ball, sponsored by DraftKings.
I love that ad read. Really time for me to kick my feet up and relax. But it's not time for you guys to relax. You have less than 20 days to get into the NFL best ball world. Go play on DraftKings right now. Go watch my Splash Play Pod YouTube channel. Go have some fun gambling for the big shots of money you can only get in the world of NFL best ball. I'll be back on Thursday here at 3 p.m., so come join me there. Check out my video today on my Splash Play Pod channel, digging in on YouTube here, drafting across all the sites. Please do that. Check out MLB Live Before Lock coming up at 6:15 p.m. Eastern with Greg and Eric. You'll be in good hands for MLB DFS and that slate coming up there. I'll see you guys again soon. Enjoy your days. Good luck. And go draft some teams, boys. All right. And girls. All right. Bye, guys.